So, deployment story. I want to tell you about some of the earlier phases of the VPC project. So, way back, many years ago, DigitalOcean's private networks used to be just shared, non-routed data center networks, effectively. And the first step of what would become VPC would be introducing tenant isolation. So, we built the software to be able to orchestrate an overlay network that we expressed in the data path, and we had that running for quite some time in production without any customer traffic being passed through it. And we had gotten to the point where we were convinced that it's just like, okay, it's time to actually introduce live traffic into this mechanism and to actually enforce tenant isolation on our network. And this was a pretty significant, high stakes, high stress change because we needed to effectively do it live and to be invisible, as it were. So we had gotten to the point where we were ready to do this in our first data center, and we were like, okay, slow and steady, we'll get it through. And we started the process. And then we got reports of some lossy behavior during the maintenance while we were rolling this out. And what was happening was because we were taking our time, all of these hypervisors that had effectively been put inside of the overlay network, those hosts were now invisible to the data center. And the MAC address entries inside of the switch for those hosts were just expiring and falling off. Everything that was not in the overlay was still passing traffic as normal. And so if a switch encounters a frame that it doesn't know what to do with, the thing that it does is it broadcasts it because L2. So while we were in the midst of this maintenance, we saw this like swelling of broadcast traffic that eventually chilled out once everything was in the overlay network. It was like a hurricane in the data center, but none of the VMs could hear or see what was going on there because of the access controls on side of the software bridge. But it was incredibly noisy there for a bit. So coming into the next data centers that we were going to roll this out, we obviously tightened up that process significantly so that we would fall inside of that window and not encounter this broadcast traffic. But as far as the lessons learned there, obviously you want to take your time with these rollouts, like with each discrete step, to be able to make sure you have a sufficient amount of bake time to be able to watch. But as you're making a change, you do want to be able to have that execute relatively quickly and have very clear feedback and metrics to be able to drive, okay, whether we're rolling forward here or we're rolling back, and making sure that both paths are well exercised and tested. So eventually we introduced tenant isolation everywhere, and this evolved into the VPC product that we have today. And that's my deployment story.